Thank you so much for joining Hill City Church online. For more information about how we do life together, you can find us at hillcitychurch.ca. We would love to help you discover your next steps in this journey of living and loving like Jesus. Now stay tuned for another encouraging and inspiring message from Hill City Church.
Oh man, how do you follow that up? It's quite the challenge. Man, God is good. Is that right or what? Whew. Well, I am excited to be with you guys here this morning. If we haven't met before, my name is Joel, and I have the privilege of getting to be one of the pastors here at Hill City Church. And I want to just take a minute and brag on some of the exciting things that God is doing before we get started here. I know my wife Jenny was talking about it, but I am so excited for next week. I know that's a great introduction to what I'm going to do this week, but I am so excited for next week. Just a quick story. I've been communicating with Ron Pierce about, what are you going to talk about? What are your scriptures? And I hadn't heard anything back from him. And just to kind of pique your interest and whet your appetite about what it's going to be, I get a response back from his office and saying, oh, actually, Ron is out of the country, and he is in a country right now where he does not turn his cell phone on while he's there. And so next week, I think it's really easy for us to get caught in this trap of God doesn't really do crazy things. God's not doing much around the world. Next week, that paradigm is going to be blown away, and he is going to talk about some of the things that he has seen in these countries where he does not turn his phone on, does not check his email for the sake of his security and safety. It's going to be good. We also have, this is like a super sneak peek. Last summer, we had a team go up to Hazelton and run a VBS, do some great ministry with the First Nations people up in Hazelton, BC, and they are doing that again this year. So if you are interested in that, you got to talk to Albert and Judy Wirtz. If you haven't met them before, talk to me or someone at Guest Services can connect you there. But God is going to do some great things there as well. It's an exciting time here, and I'm excited this morning to try and do my best to wrap up this amazing series, The Struggle is Real, and talk about how God has the final say. I love how everything is tied into it this morning, communion tied into it. We talk how we worship God tied into it. We serve and follow a God who has the final say. Not that we always see it on this earth, though. Isn't that the tricky part? Isn't that the tricky part? Because we say we serve a God who has the final say, but sometimes that final say is saved for eternity. And that's where we get into this issue of struggles, of pain, and how do we handle that here on earth? Because if you're like me, I can say the struggle is real. The struggle is real. And I would say especially, I don't know, I'm not going to compare all the months of my life, but I think it's ironic as we have gone through January, myself and my family, I would say it might be one of the months where we have struggled the most. Just to kind of put this into context, 2.5 weeks ago, my grandpa passed away. And I know what happens all the time. I'm not looking for sympathy, but I'm just being real with you guys. Because we are an authentic church. And so I'm talking about the struggle is real in my life as a pastor. Because this amazing person who growing up with a single mom and 3 boys, grandpa, yeah, but really more like a dad to me, kind of thought he was going to be around forever. He'd been around for 103 years, so it's understandable that, I don't know, maybe he is going to be here forever. Maybe I'll go first and grandpa will still be around. But, man, God, it's so real. We can't hide from the fact that we all face struggle and pain. And it's been a challenge to me because I feel like I am less prepared now to answer the question of why do we have struggle, why do we have pain, than I was at the beginning of preparing for this message. Again, another great lead into what we're going to talk about this morning. We're on fire, so just come back next week. No, but it's real. We go through it, and it's a simple answer, and it's not a good answer, but we face struggle and pain because we live in a broken world. And I know it's hard for us maybe even impossible, to wrap our heads around. Because it's so simple, but it doesn't make sense. It's so simple, but it doesn't make sense. God, you are good. God, I believe that you heal. I believe that you are all-knowing. And so I have all this on one side, in one hand, and then on the other side, I have this broken world that I live in, where all of us have this thing inside of us, this sinful nature, and you're like our head, it's a simple answer, but our heads struggle to wrap around that. And I want to talk this morning specifically about the final say, in the sense that I believe that there are so many things that are saved for eternity. And we're gonna talk about what the Bible has to say about it, because we believe in the Bible here at HillCity Church, and we believe that if you do your research, if you do your homework, you will find that the Bible is the most reliable book that exists on this earth, and that it is divinely inspired by God. And so we are going to go to the Bible to talk about God having the final say, and what I'm going to call this morning the finish line of our lives. And I want to be really careful, and you heard my heart. I'm going to talk about finish line in the sense of when our life is over. And my heart is not that it's insensitive to anybody who's going through issues, that as we talk about struggles and pain, that, hey, we all face this stuff. I'm just going to talk real. None of it is meant to make your pain feel insignificant. None of it is meant to diminish what you're going through or make it seem trivial. None of that. We're just going to be real and believe that God has something waiting for us at the finish line. And without going into a tremendous detail, without trying to back it up on every theological side, we here would say that there is, in eternity, there is heaven and there is hell. And I think oftentimes we are great at knowing how real hell is. We're great at holding that over people's heads or holding it over our own heads of like, oh, I just got to do better so I don't go there. But I think on the flip side, we have this amazing promise of heaven as a reward for the suffering that we face in this life. That's just the reality. I remember there was this great ad campaign. Maybe you're familiar with it. It's an ad campaign by a well-known company, Nike. They came out with this ad campaign that said, "There is no finish line." And I think, man, that is a great slogan for a company. It talks about how you're never going to stop trying to get better. You're never going to stop trying to improve. Great slogan for a company. Terrible slogan for life. I don't know about you, but when I go for a run, I get excited about the finish line. Who wants to be in a race where there is no finish line? How do you even know what to do? How do you, should I run fast now or run fast later or save energy for further on? When is this over? We have a finish line, and I think it's really important to remember. I love, we're going to read some verses this morning. I love this verse in 2 Corinthians chapter 4. It says this. It says, that is why we never give up. So Paul is talking. That is why we never give up. He's just talked about all the things that have come against him. He said things like, I'm crushed, but not, or I'm pressed down, but not crushed, persecuted, but not abandoned. All these famous things that he's just said them. This is why we never give up. Though our bodies are dying, our spirits are being renewed every day. And this is encouraging and also really discouraging at the same time. For our present troubles are small and won't last very long. Yet they produce for us a glory that vastly outweighs them and will last forever. I don't know. Paul, sometimes it doesn't feel like my struggles are small. Sometimes it doesn't feel like I am facing small things. But Paul, in the middle of everything that he goes through, has this acknowledgement, this recognizing factor that there is an eternity, that there is a finish line, and there is something there that is going to make our problems seem small. They produce for us a glory that vastly outweighs them and will last forever. So we don't look at the troubles we can see now. Rather, we fix our gaze on things that cannot be seen. For the things that we see now will be gone, but the things we cannot see will last forever. This is where you hear things like Paul, and another translation says, our light and momentary afflictions. Boy, I don't know. If Paul can say that about his things, about being shipwrecked, about being flogged, having assassination attempts on his life, light and momentary afflictions. Not that it's easy. I don't get it. But there's something that comes from believing there is a reward for what we go through in life. I love what James says in James chapter 4. He says, you don't have a clue what tomorrow will bring, for your fleeting life is but a warm breath of air that is visible in the cold only for a moment and then vanishes. It is good to be at church. You guys are feeling so encouraged right now, aren't you? And I think the reality is that these verses can seem pretty cold and heartless unless we understand a little bit of what heaven is about. Because I think it's like, oh, good, my life is short, nobody's going to remember me. I'm pretty much like a breath. When you can see your breath for that long, that's my significance on the earth. That's what James is saying. Paul says that your life is so short that these things aren't going to matter anyway. And that's why it's really important. We're going to read one verse. The guys up in there, we are going to talk, we're going to read Revelation chapter 21. So one section of scripture on heaven. There's this incredible part where John gets taken up in this amazing vision and he sees heaven. And he writes it down, and it's a great context because we read in Peter as well. There's a verse in Peter that we're not going to read, but Peter says, we look forward to a new heaven and a new earth. And then we read this in Revelation chapter 21. It says, now I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away. Also there was no more sea. Then I, John, saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from heaven saying, behold, the tabernacle of God is with man, and he will dwell with them, and they shall be his people. I love this one sentence. God himself will be with them. A relationship with God that our mind cannot even comprehend. And be their God, and God will wipe away every tear from their eyes. There shall be no more death. The final say, nor sorrow, nor crying. There shall be no more pain, for the former things have passed away. Amen. Then he who sat on the throne said, behold, I make all things new. And he said to me, write, for these words are true and faithful. And he said to me, it is done. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. I will give the fountain of the water of life freely to him who thirsts. He who overcomes shall inherit all things, and I will be his God, and he shall be my son. What a reward that we have at the finish line. I think of my grandpa, 103 years old. I think of, just like, to be honest, not in a great place in the last 6 months of his life. His 103 hardworking years, back literally falling apart. Vertebrae collapsing in his back, disintegrating. No more pain. And man, the reward at the end of this life makes everything that we go through, if we let it, potentially insignificant. Not that it's easy. You still got to get up. You still got to put the effort in. But those pain, problems, the suffering that we go through are light and momentary. They are light and momentary things. Oh, man. I love these couple of verses in Hebrews chapter 11. This is a great chapter about heroes of our faith, how they got through it. We're just going to read a couple of verses. It says, Hebrews chapter 11, verses 13 to 16, it says, these all died in faith, not having received the promises. That's a powerful sentence right there. You mean they had promises from God that they maybe didn't see fulfilled in their life? Does that ring a bell with everybody? Does anybody else be like, huh? Those guys that we look up to, people like Abraham, David, Gideon, do you mean that they maybe believed fully with their whole heart that God could heal and saw somebody not get healed? Promises not received. But having seen them afar off, or being able to see the final say, were assured of them, embraced them, and confessed that they were strangers and pilgrims on this earth. For those who say such things declare plainly that they seek a homeland. They are looking for somewhere else to live. What a couple of just key thoughts there. It's ironic that our key to successfully living on earth here is actually looking to the new earth, to heaven as what's coming. For those who say I just read that. And truly, if they had called, that was supposed to be in my head. And truly, if they had called to mind that country from which they had come out, they would have had opportunity to return. But now they desire a better, that is, a heavenly country. Therefore, God is not ashamed to be called their God, for he has prepared a city for them. I love what it says in the Passion Translation. It says, they all live their lives on earth as those who belong to another realm. For clearly those who live this way are longing for the appearing of a heavenly city. It goes on to say further on in that verse, but they couldn't turn back, for their hearts were fixed on what was far greater, that is, the heavenly realm. And I love this concept. What are we looking at? Where is our heart? Where is our heart? I mean, what a powerful question to ask yourself every day. I mean, Jesus talked about it. Where your heart is, where your money is, that's where your heart's going to be. Sure. Very concerned about his heart. I love, there's a story of Jesus talking to his disciples. Like the 12 were there. Jesus had 12 disciples. And then there was a lot of other people there around. Like people followed Jesus. There were other disciples, not in the 12, that followed him around. And Jesus is teaching some really hard things. Like the stuff that you don't get excited about hearing. Like the ones that maybe when Pastor Mitch or somebody's up here, you start to squirm in your seat and like, oh, I wonder if I could get out the door without anybody noticing that I'm leaving right now. Jesus is teaching some hard stuff. And that happens. Some of those other disciples start to walk away. I'm done. My heart's not here anymore. And Jesus, I love this so much. Jesus turns and he says to Peter, Peter, you want out too? You can leave. And Peter says this amazing one sentence answer. God, where else would I go? Where else would I go? Where else would I go? You are what I want. There is nowhere else that I can go. And it's so important to grasp that because I think we can be really bold. We should not be surprised that our time on earth is hard, that it doesn't go our way. We're not gonna read the whole thing, but I mean, it's really clear. When God calls Saul, who is persecuting the church like nobody ever has before, he has this radical transformation where Saul becomes Paul, who writes the majority of the New Testament. And there's this moment here, we're going to read 3 verses. He's blind, very vulnerable. He's been blinded by this encounter with God where he had Jesus speak to him and basically say, Saul, you're on the wrong team. Saul, you're fighting against me. I know you think that you're on my side, but you're actually fighting against me. And there's this moment where Saul is blind, and God speaks to this man named Ananias, and Ananias comes to him. This is what God says to Ananias. He says, I gotta find it because we're cutting some verses out here. But the Lord said to Ananias, go to Saul, for he is a chosen vessel of mine. We love to hear that. Yes. I am God's chosen vessel. God has chosen me to do good things. He has good things for my life. God's chosen vessel of mine to bear my name. Yes, I get to bear the name of God. I get to be his representative in everything that I do before Gentiles, before kings. Oh, I'm going to be doing some pretty important stuff. And the children of Israel. This is what God says to Ananias. For I will show him how many things he must suffer for my name's sake. Jesus talked quite a few times to his disciples about the things that he was going to have to suffer for us. And I got to be honest. If Jesus and Paul understood that suffering was going to be an integral part of what they were going to do here on this earth, there's not much hope for Joel. And so what is our expectation? What is it? Because I think our perspective, our expectation can actually help us a lot. We get caught up in some abstract stuff sometimes where we think that everything is going to be perfect and that it's not going to be hard and it's going to be easy all the time. I think, again, not to trivialize anything, but in the summer, I had opportunities, maybe the wrong word. I did a 160-kilometer bike ride. And maybe some of you are like, that's farther than I like to drive in my car in a day, and that's okay. But you don't know what? My attitude going in, just to be real with you, was I'm not sure if I can finish. My legs are going to hurt. My butt is going to hurt. And it's going to be miserable. And it was. I mean, was there some joy along the way? Absolutely. Was it fantastic to finish? Yes. Was it an incredibly hard 5 hours? Yes. Could I walk well after? No. But I think in life too, and again, not to be trivial about it, but what is our expectation? Because I think that there's a really distinct reason why Paul, before he even starts preaching God's name, gets shown that it's going to be hard along the way. Gets shown that so that he is ready for that. So that he is ready to handle it. And I think as you look through the Bible at some of these other verses about heaven, you will notice that heaven is commonly talked about as the reward for our suffering on earth. And you can see that. That's not me saying that. The majority of them, Jesus says, great is your reward in heaven. They're almost, the majority of the time, they are tied together. So I want to encourage you guys this morning about your perspective. Because I think that we can waste all of our energy trying to find a place in life where there is no suffering. We can spend a lot of time bemoaning the fact that we go through it. We can even get really angry at God. God, how is this happening? God, it's in your name that you are a healer. It's in your name that you are a provider. It's in your name. Like, you know everything. You know all the details of my situation. What is going on? And I think that there is a perspective shift. It says, God, I believe that you can heal. I have faith that you can heal right now. But I know that even if you don't, my reward, as hard as it is to say, my reward is not being healthy on this earth. There are things that are more important than your health. There are things that are more important than your bank account. And that hurts me. I like to be able to go on bike rides. That would be hard to lose. But my reward is in heaven. And I know that I have that to look forward to to pull me past those times where it seems like there are promises that are not being answered, that are not being fulfilled, where it seems like that's not happening. I have that to look forward to. Can you guys stand? We're going to have our prayer team come. We're going to sing just a quick little bit of worship. I want to encourage you guys, this is real stuff and not easy stuff. Come and talk to somebody this morning. We would love to pray for you for what you're going through and just be an encouragement along the way. Thank you, guys.
Thanks for listening. We would love to hear how you have been impacted by this message. You can contact us at info@hillcity.ca or simply find us on Facebook and Instagram.